Remember when all Republicans wanted to talk about was Hunter Biden or the Biden crime family? Well, all those lies ring pretty hollow, especially in the face of the $400 million bribe Donald Trump just got in the form of a jet from Qatar, as well as a new report about Don Jr. that has Carolyn Leavitt and her comm staff in the White House losing their minds. We are going to get into that scandal with Don Jr. that has a little to do with his favorite pastime. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into this freak out that is coming from the White House, we have to see where it all started, and that's a couple of months ago with Carolyn Leavitt saying this right here.
That's an invitation that is given, and there are hundreds of outlets on this campus. Many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the president questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because the reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. The Secretary of Interior has made that the official designation in the geographical identification name server, and Apple has recognized that, Google has recognized that, pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America, and it's very important to this administration that we get that right, not just for people here at home, but also for the rest of the world. Sure.
From day one, Carolyn Leavitt and this White House have made it abundantly clear that anyone seeking to do good journalism, to tell the truth, and to hold this administration accountable will be targeted for it. They have made that clear. They've projected it out. They want you to know. Intimidation has been all we've seen from Donald Trump, especially as of lately, as he continues to lose support and he continues to lose in court. And so when a new story came out about his son, Don Jr., he wasn't too happy about it. And before we get into that story and the resulting meltdown that came from the White House, I think we need to take a look at this clip of Don Jr. talking very strangely about Mayor Pete, and let me know what you notice.
A blow to people who get really important jobs with no experience to basically check off some identity politics boxes, folks. You know, Mayor Pete, mayor of a small town in Indiana, well, he's a gay American, so he should just run for president, and we're going to get behind it. And guess what? When you don't get that, if you get in line with the Democrat Party, we'll give you a major cabinet position where it doesn't really matter. It does not seem in the age of equity. Remember, not equality, because equality means like of opportunity, not of outcome. In the age of equity, there seems to be some scary stuff going on at the FAA. And guess what? When you're 36,000 feet in the air, maybe you just want a competent person there, not someone who checked the box like, to me, Mayor Pete did.
So I wouldn't describe the person in that video as necessarily in a good state, maybe something altering the state of their behavior. I don't want to say too much because, as we're about to see, if I do, I may be investigated by the White House because Donald Trump, Carolyn Leavitt's teams, comm staffers trying to cover for him were so freaked out by a new report about Don Jr. Well, let's just take a look at what they're doing. Trump White House sharpens its knives for Politico's owner. An article about Don Jr. has sent MAGA world into a tizzy. The Trump administration is sending aggressive signals about launching a potential federal investigation into the company that owns Politico and Business Insider as retaliation for an article scrutinizing Donald Trump Jr.'s business interests. In a Tuesday night story, little noticed outside of right-wing media, Breitbart reporter and Trump administration favorite Matthew Boyle wrote that the White House was furious at German media conglomerate Alex Springer. At issue was a Business Insider story titled "Don Jr. is the new Hunter Biden." In the 1,500-word-long item, reporter Bethany McLean focused on Don Jr.'s venture capital fund, 1789 Capital, primarily via a collection of quotes from some ethics experts and an anonymous Wall Street investor concerned that the fund could present a conflict of interest. The story was relatively anodyne, certainly in a world where the president is poised to receive a $400 million luxury jet from a foreign country and boosting a meme coin by offering White House access, and Business Insider isn't the first media outlet to compare Don Jr. to Hunter Biden. But Boyle wrote that the Business Insider article had opened up Alex Springer to a massive federal review of its ownership, quoting an unnamed outside White House advisor as calling Politico and Business Insider a German influence operation. Talk about your all-time backfires, Boyle wrote. Instead of landing a major hit on the president's son, a German-backed publication has drawn massive federal attention onto its foreign ownership structure and lobbying activities before the federal government. The idea that the White House is only now discovering that two major digital media outlets are owned by a German corporation, purchases that were well covered in the business press at the time, is ridiculous. Less so is the possibility Boyle's piece raises, that the Trump administration might retaliate against Alex Springer. Boyle even goes on to quote an unnamed White House official agreeing with his theory that Alex Springer is under the gun. The official suggested that the Business Insider story could amount to illegal foreign political meddling. A defining characteristic of the Trump 2.0 administration has been its overt attempts to use the tools of the government on and threats of lawsuits against major news outlets. It has often worked. Networks have made multi-million-dollar settlements with Trump. Newspapers like the Washington Post have dramatically revamped their editorial pages in apparent attempts at currying favor. A global media giant, Alex Springer, had worked to build inroads with Trump. The company is, by the standards of journalism, pretty conservative. Alex Springer employees in Europe are required to take a pledge to support Israel, and in 2020, CEO Matthias Dumpferner, sorry for pronouncing that wrong, asked some of his employees to gather and pray for Trump's re-election. But any goodwill it had with the administration is at risk of dissipating. There is so much hypocrisy to unpack here, I don't even really know where to start. First of all, Elon Musk tried to influence the election of AfD in Germany, their ultra-extremist, far-right, neo-Nazi party. So if we want to talk about election interference and foreign governments getting involved, Elon Musk is involved in our government, unfortunately. He was trying to influence Germany's. There's that. Also, foreign influence from other countries to the United States. Let's go back to the jumbo jet. What is that? Other nations are actively buying off Donald Trump and his family. That's where the Don Jr. report comes. Don Jr., who has now set up a members-only club in Washington, D.C., which will cost about $500,000 to become a member of. Yeah, that's his business venture. Give me a bunch of cash, I'll let you talk to my daddy. And it's not just that Donald Trump is crooked, and so is his son. The report obviously makes mention to Donald Trump's notorious, sorry, I just have something in my nose. I'm not suggesting anything about Don Jr., of course. I don't also want the White House to be investigating me. But, in the past, he's been known for certain I'm not even going to go as far as to say that. And they don't like it. And so now the White House comms office, potentially there's going to be DOJ involved, is going after journalists for writing about Don Jr.'s clear and public corruption, intimidation. That's what the administration is about. That's what it's always going to be about. And we got to focus in on that. And this is insanity. And it's not, of course, with just Donald Trump. It's throughout his cabinet. RFK Jr., a great example of that. And speaking of which, Bernie Sanders was calling him out in a clip that I want to take a look at right here.
It's not only that he is evasive on a very simple question of whether or not kids should get measles vaccines. They are making massive cuts at the NIH, other health agencies, cutting back on the kind of research we need for cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and other serious illnesses. So what you are seeing is devastating cuts to very, very important healthcare programs.
Multiple times today, he denied that any scientists have been fired from federal agencies, and that seems to be clearly not true. I think he's either lying or doesn't know, but I think it's very clear that that is true. And I want to say your staff put out a great report. This is, I think, one of the most underappreciated aspects about the cuts that have been happening. 31% cut in cancer research funding, $1.1 billion going down to less than $800 million, the $300 million cut in cancer funding in just the first few months of this year. Do you understand why this is happening? And do you feel like you have a clear answer from the secretary about what's going on?
Well, their answer is they are reorganizing. They're making these agencies more efficient. The truth is they are cutting billions of dollars from health care in a variety of ways in order to give tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country. That is what they are doing.
Are you concerned about the management of outbreaks that are happening right now in terms of the communication that's coming from HHS, particularly on something like the measles vaccine and all kinds of things we talked about, you know, treatment of measles as opposed to focusing on the re-eradication of this deadly virus?
Of course I'm concerned. I think every American should be concerned. Vaccines have been one of the great developments in modern history in preventing terrible illnesses. And when you have the head of HHS unable to answer a question about whether or not he supports vaccines for measles, everybody in this country should be deeply concerned, Chris.
68,000 people a year die because they don't get to a doctor when they should. Is healthcare a human right? Will you work with us to guarantee healthcare to every man, woman, and child in America?
Well, I think you're asking two different questions. You're asking a philosophical question about whether it is a human right, like a constitutional right. As an attorney, I would say that it's not a right of a kind that we otherwise enshrine in the Constitution, because healthcare costs your neighbor money. If I smoke cigarettes for 20 years, I make that choice, which is my choice.
I don't mean to, I don't have a lot of time, so I am here.
If you're asking me a philosophical question, I gotta, give you a thoughtful answer.
Within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
So, it's not like freedom of speech, which costs, everybody.
But every other country, Mr. Secretary, every other country guarantees health care to all people as a right. Should we, as Americans?
The objective is to get Americans the level of health care that they want, the choice, which Americans want. Americans
they don't want the choice to be uninsured.
Well, but
they don't want the choice to die because they don't get to a doctor on time.
Americans prefer private insurance to other insurance sources.
No one in this administration is making anyone healthier, happier, safer. It is all just a grift. It is one big grift that we will call out on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.